Hi there, welcome to this build of the Gladiator, a 67.5-inch vintage design from 1941, and we're building this from a great set of plans which you can download from the Outer Zone website. And if you have a look in the description below, there'll be a link to these plans and it's free. Now you can see the wings laid out before me, and up to this point we've built the centre section and we've got the two wing tips, and it's a tip dihedral wing where it just comes along flat and then up. And now is a really exciting job and slightly nerve-wracking. We're going to get these wing tips attached to the central section, so we're going to join the wing up essentially, and I can't wait to do this and just see how it looks. It's quite an impressive wing because it's a really deep chord. It's 14 inches. So right, well, we've got, what are we going to do first? We need to make up some dihedral braces. We've got two parallel spars that run throughout the wing, and this is 5/8 by 1/4, and this is 3/16 by 3/8. So we've got a slightly smaller spar at the back. Now I'm going to put dihedral braces on both of these, and I'm going to make them out of plywood. Now on the plans, these plans aren't the original plans that appeared in Air Trails in March 1941. These are from Model Builder, and I think it was the 70s. I'm not sure if there's a date on them. I think they were redrawn. No, I can't see a date. But on the plans here, it talks about the dihedral braces, and it says the original article did not state what material to use for dihedral braces, and it says they suggest 3/32, which is, if I remember rightly, it is 2.4. Sorry, I've got a conversion table here for when my brain goes blank. It's 2.4 millimeters. To be honest, I'm not comfortable with having dihedral braces that don't add up to the same thickness as the spars. For example, this spruce spar on the front is 1/4 inch, so that's I think it's about 6.4 millimeters. So if I'm putting plywood dihedral braces either side, I want those two dihedral braces to essentially add up to the same thickness as the spar. If we use 3/32, which is 2.4 mil, we end up with dihedral braces and a joint which isn't as strong, or is thinner, should I say, than the actual spruce spars. So I'm going to use slightly thicker material. I'm going to use 3 mil plywood for the front, and I think for the back I may use something slightly thinner, but we'll have a look at that. I just want to make sure that these joints here are going to be really strong. We've made the wing central section really nice and rigid, and I don't want this wing to fail at the dihedral joints. So as I said, I think we're going to use something a little bit thicker, at least adding up to the spruce spars. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to draw out some dihedral braces, and then we'll have a look at those and we'll get them made and we'll get all this set up. Right, I've now drawn out the design or the shape I'm going to use for the dihedral braces, and this line that comes through here is the join, and I've got the ribs roughly marked on, and there's a mark here for the top, the height of the ribs, and you can see on the wing that we're fitting this to, it's just a lower spar, so there's nothing up top here as shown on the on this drawing. And you can see this is a piece of the 5/8 spar that I cut off, and you can see it's the full depth of the spar. The only difference being that I've thickened it up at the join, and essentially I brought it across, straight across from the second rib essentially on the wingtip to the second rib in on the central section. So it'll just thicken up this area and give it a lot more strength. And you can see I'm making it slightly longer brace on the wingtip, coming out in 3 bays, and only 2 bays on the central section. So it's essentially going to fit. I mean, these need trimming a little bit, but essentially it's going to fit like that. And what I will do is make it exactly the same for the rear one, the rear spar, but as I said, I think I said anyway, it will just be shallower to match in with these spruce spars. And I think that will make quite a nice strong job. Right, I've now got my 4 braces as per the drawing I did earlier, and you can see we've got the longer section that's going to go up the wingtip, and we've got that deeper bit in the middle just to give a little bit more strength, and the line there is going to be on the join. So we've got 2 of those, one either side for there, and we've got 2 similarly deepened dihedral braces for the rear spar. Now, as I said, I've done the front one is for this rear spar is going to be 3mm, and the rear one is going to be 2mm. Now, what we need to do at some point, I mean, we need to trim these spars so they're all the right length. But before we do that, what we need to do, if I turn over the wing, is we need to cut out the side of the ribs to, let's have a look, that's going to go like that, to allow this to slot down between those 2 ribs, and we need the same the other side and of course on that rear spar. Now, when we made the wing, I didn't glue that bit of the rib on. I glued it at the top of the spar, but actually that has glued a little bit, but there. So that will hopefully just make it easier to cut out 3mm of the rib either side. So I'm going to do that now, and I'll probably do that with my razor saw, and also I need to do exactly the same thing on the central section. So I'm going to get this done on all parts of the wing, and then we can think about how we're going to set this up to glue it. Right, I've now got all of the slots cut so I can just slip in the dihedral braces and get this glued up. Before I even entertain that, what I've done is I've clamped together all of the dihedral braces and made sure that they're all exactly the same angle and size underneath. So I've clamped those together with all those nice and flat together, and then sanded this side so we've got exactly the same angle. There's a little bit of variation on the top, but I don't mind that because it's the bottom that it's going to sit on when we start clamping this together, and it's the bottom spar that we're going to feel to make sure it's all nice and lined up. So I've done that. So what I can do now is start to get these fitted. Now, what I'm going to do, I think, is I'm going to put in the braces just for the central section. So I'm going to put all of the braces in, get them glued up, and then once that's done, I'll then trim these spars to size, and we obviously need to put angles on them, and then we can clamp them onto those braces that are sticking out. I think rather than trying to glue it all at once, normally I would do that, but I think on a wing like this, if I can get the braces glued in first, I think we'll then get a better job lining up the tips. So I'll get them in, get them glued. Right, I'm ready to start gluing these now. I'm going to do one side at a time, and I'm just having a dry run here, just clamping it up, make sure I know what I'm doing. And the underside of these spars, these spruce spars, are going to be nice and flush with the braces, and then we know we've got the angles right. Now, earlier we looked at the braces, and I was having this deeper section in the middle here with the dihedral joint here, and so it was just going to brace across there a little bit thicker, and that's worked out really good on that front front spar where the rib is deeper, but on the back here I haven't done that because essentially it would just take out too much of the rib. So I'm having the brace just the thickness all the way of the spar itself, no kind of bridge across to deepen it and thicken it. So right, I think I'm ready to get this glued up. Get on with it now. Right, well I've now got all of the dihedral braces glued in place and they've gone in really well, and I'm really pleased with how that's looking. And I fitted one of the wings. I've trimmed the leading edge, the spars and the trailing edge. I've done them at an angle, and that goes in really nicely. I won't try and slot it in now because you have to be careful, because if you're not careful I'll damage the ribs, so I won't slot that in while I'm talking and thinking. But it's worth me just saying a word about trimming the spars. We obviously need to do them the right angle so that they fit nice and snugly against the spars on this central section, but we need to be really mindful of the spacing. And I'll just zoom the camera in, make a space, and I'll show you what I mean. Right, well these ribs are all spaced at more or less 50 millimeters. There is a very small discrepancy. These ones are slightly wider than these ones, and these are 50. But what we need to do is be really mindful of how this rib responds when we put the dihedral in, and what we can do to maintain the spacing so it looks right. Because what I've done is I've set this up so that all these are 50 millimeters apart, and I want to have the spacing between this one and this one, when this is slotted in, 50 millimeters apart as well. And this one is just slightly over. That's about 53, and I think this is about 53, and that one's 55. So they get slightly wider towards the fuselage, or where the fuselage is going to go. But when we cut this, we don't want to just measure. We don't want to just measure 50 millimeters and cut. You can see I've got a 50 millimeter mark on there. That will give us too narrow a spacing, because we have to be mindful that when we tilt the wing to put the dihedral in, the top of this rib moves over. So let's place that about, well I'll tell you what, let's put that at the right height. We put the ruler there like that, and then when I drop that down, you can see there's about, I don't know, 1/4 of an inch, something like that, of a gap. And that's because as we lift it up to put the dihedral in, it moves the top of that rib closer to here. So if we just measure this 50 mil, that's the gap we want, so we'll cut that at 50 mil. When we put all this together, that space is going to be too small. So we need to be really mindful of the spacing that we're having, and how just putting the dihedral in closes this space because of the tilting of the rib. So what I'm going to do now is I've got the other wing here, which I'm going to trim up and get that to fit, and then we'll have a look at this once it's kind of dry clamped. We've got a dry run of how we're going to glue it, and then I can't wait to get it glued. Right, well, I've now got it clamped together, and this is the dry run, just to make sure everything goes together. I can get the heights of the tips the same, 6.5 inch lift on the tips, and I get down the front, sort of where the camera is really, and just eye up the wings to make sure that they're nice and level, and we're not seeing kind of a twist in the wing or anything like that. I mean, we can measure it, we can measure the spars, but I find it much easier to do it by eye and look at it and make sure that we're seeing this front edge and this rear edge nice and together, I suppose, not when you look at the wing and you've got one bit a little bit lower than the other, just indicating a bit of a twist. But this is really nice, and I don't know whether I dare lift this up, but you can see this is a monster of a wing. I can't wait to get this glued, and I think what I'm going to do is glue each individual size. There's no benefit from doing these together, as long as I make sure there's no twist, the tip's the right height, then that will be much better than trying to, I'm going to use 30-minute epoxy to glue these, and I don't want to be trying to get both right. I'd much rather get the one done and have time to spare. So I'm going to get this glued now, and then we'll see what it looks like when it's done. I'm really excited to get this done. It's such a nice part of a build when it starts to come together and you really appreciate what it's going to look like. It's also a little bit stressful because there's no going back from this stage, or not without it being really, really ugly. So anyway, I'll get on and get this wing glued up. Well, what can I say? Look at that. That is an absolutely gorgeous wing. I am really excited to get this glued together, and it all went really well. A little bit stressful. As you can see, the time ticking away on the clock and you're just getting it right, but it actually is really good. I'm really pleased with it. There's a bit of cleaning up to do. There's a few drips of epoxy on the underside, and a little bit of the just a little bit of the one brace there is just sticking down a little, but the braces were oversized compared to the spars, so that is no problem at all. But just look at that. It's a absolutely gorgeous wing. I know I keep saying this and I might sound a bit obsessive, but I really do like this wing, and the way that there's no top spar to interrupt these cap strips from on the top of the ribs, and so the covering is just going to roll between those ribs. Anyway, what I'm going to do now is clean this up a little bit. Some of these ribs are just still a little bit loose where I've slotted the spars through, so I just need to make that good. And then I'm going to get the cap strips on. I've got all of the cap strips currently bending. I soak them in water and then clamp them around a paint pot, and here's a picture of it, and they're still like that. I haven't taken them off yet, but that will be the next job. And I'm going to get the cap strips on these centre ones, and of course we didn't put cap strips on anything on the underside, so we'll be doing that. And once that's done, we'll come back and have a look. I'm not going to do any more sanding or profiling now. I'll kind of do that at the end of the build because it's more or less there anyway. It just needs mostly around this bit and the leading edge, but there's very little to do. So anyway, I'll get this finished and then we'll have one final look. Well, look at that. I tell you what, I am so excited to get this wing finished, and kind of slightly relieved. There's 66 cap strips along this wing, top and bottom. I mean, to be honest, it's the cap strips that I love about this wing and how it makes it look. But if I never see another cap strip again, that's fine. But anyway, let's have a look at the underside. You can see we've got all of the cap strips on the underside there and on the top. Now, I have sanded these. The wing still needs a finishing sand. I still need to put a profile on, or a round profile on the leading edge, and also on this front bit here. And the tails of these cap strips on the underside, now these are done, but on the underside still need tapering out. But I have sanded the cap strips just on these top surfaces to make sure that everything is lovely in line and I haven't got anything sticking up high. And I've also done that on the underside. So I've ran this sanding stick all the way along just to make sure I've got that really sweet profile. And I don't know whether we can see the under camber on that wing is looking really nice, and you can see on that bit of the wing as well there. But I am really pleased to get this done, and it's surprising how much work is in this wing. There's a considerable amount of work, but it has been really enjoyable. And it's interesting that it's pretty well balanced as a wing. I don't think either side is particularly heavier than the other. So, which is quite nice for a wing of this size, not to end up with just a little bit of a tilt one way or the other. So anyway, I am really pleased now to put this on one side, somewhere safe, and to think about what I'm going to do next. I'm going to leave the finishing profiling until a later date, and I'm really looking forward to starting the fuselage, to be honest. This lovely long fuselage, I think it's, is it, let's have a look how long it is. I can't read that without my glasses. What have we got? Yeah, it's 56.25 inches. So it is a really nice long fuselage. So I think that's going to be the next job. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed seeing me pull this wing together, or at least get the wing joined with this lovely tip dihedral. And hopefully you've seen the previous videos where we've actually built the 3 sections. And I would say this feels really quite a substantial wing now. We've put those bracings in, the 3mm bracings, we've got the carbon fibre in the centre section, and it does feel quite substantial, which has been a real concern of mine through this whole build, that I wanted to make it strong enough, and the plans just showed these 2 bottom spars being balsa wood, which just I don't think would have stood the test of time. So anyway, I'm going to draw this video to a close now. Thanks very much for watching, and please come back and see how we get on in this lovely big fuselage. Thanks very much.